Your history teacher lied to you. They made the past sound like a logical, orderly series of events, but we have proof the universe is actually run by a drunk screenwriter who lost the plot halfway through. We've filtered through the records to find the 10 absolute peak moments where the laws of probability just gave up and left the chat. We're talking about a sandwich that accidentally triggered a world war, a man hunted by lightning even after he was buried, and a video game that glitched into predicting the biggest tragedy of the 21st century. If you think these are just accidents, you aren't paying attention. Welcome to the simulation. Let's look at the source code. Number 1. The loneliest car crash in history, Ohio, 1895. Back in 1895, the entire state of Ohio was basically one giant empty parking lot. Why? Because there were exactly 2 cars in the entire state. Not 2,000, not 200, 2. Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. We're talking about thousands of miles of open dirt roads, 0 traffic lights, 0 stop signs, and absolutely no congestion. Statistically, these 2 drivers could have spent their entire lives roaming the Midwest without ever even seeing each other's dust clouds. But apparently, the universe has a twisted sense of humor. These 2 pioneers of the road managed to find each other in the middle of nowhere and crash head-on. It is arguably the most avoidable accident in human history. They essentially invented the car crash before they even invented traffic laws. I can only imagine the conversation with the local sheriff. "Officer, I swear he came out of nowhere." Where? From the other 40,000 square miles of empty land? It's a perfect example of the targeting glitch, when the only 2 objects in a simulation are somehow hard-coded to collide. Number 2. Bill Morgan, the man who hacked the Matrix. Australian truck driver Bill Morgan might be the only person to literally find a cheat code for reality. In 1999, Bill was crushed by a truck and suffered a massive heart attack. He was clinically dead for 14 minutes. Most people see a white light. Bill apparently saw the back end of the simulation's lottery system. After waking up from a coma against all odds, he decided to test his luck with a scratch-off ticket. He instantly won a car worth $17,000. That's a great feel-good story, but then the Matrix glitched. A local TV station wanted to film a reenactment for the news. The producer handed Bill another ticket and said, "Just pretend to scratch it so we can get the shot." Bill, being a good sport, scratched the ticket on camera, stopped, and went pale. He wasn't acting. He turned to the news crew and said, "I just won $250,000. He won the actual jackpot on live TV while pretending to win a jackpot. That look of pure, unadulterated shock on his face is something Hollywood couldn't replicate in a million years. The odds of winning twice in a row like that, especially during a reenactment of the first win, are so astronomical it suggests Bill's death gave him a permanent VIP pass to the universe's prize pool. Number 3. The World War Sandwich, 1914. The assassination that started World War I and killed 16 million people essentially happened because of a sandwich and a confused driver. On the morning of June 28, 1914, a group of assassins tried to bomb Archduke Franz Ferdinand's motorcade in Sarajevo. They failed, the Archduke survived, and the lead assassin, Gavrilo Princip, gave up. Dejected and hungry, he went to a local deli to grab a sandwich and rethink his life choices. Meanwhile, the Archduke decided to visit the people injured in the earlier bombing, but his driver didn't get the memo on the route change. He took a wrong turn, realized his mistake, and tried to reverse. But cars in 1914 were essentially lawnmowers with leather seats. The gearbox jammed and the engine stalled. Where did it stall? Exactly 5 feet away from the deli where Prince was finishing his snack. Prince looked up, saw his target sitting in a stationary car right in front of him like a sitting duck, and fired the shots that changed the 20th century forever. If the driver had used a map, or if Prince hadn't been hungry for that specific sandwich at that specific moment, the world we live in today wouldn't exist. It's the ultimate butterfly effect glitch. Number 4. The Titan Prophecy, 1898. 14 years before the Titanic ever set sail, a struggling author named Morgan Robertson wrote a novella titled Futility. It reads less like fiction and more like a time traveler's leak. His book featured a massive British ocean liner, the largest ever built, named the Titan. In the book, the Titan was labeled unsinkable by the press. The parallels are terrifying. In the story, the Titan was filled with rich, arrogant passengers. It didn't have enough lifeboats. It hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic on a cold April night, and it sank, killing almost everyone on board. The technical details are a perfect match. The ship's displacement, its length, its speed at the moment of impact, and even the number of propellers. Robertson later swore he wasn't a psychic, just a guy who knew maritime trends. But maritime trends don't usually include predicting the name, the month, the location, and the exact cause of a disaster 14 years in advance. It's as if Robertson tapped into a global save file that hadn't been loaded yet.
Number 5. Tamerlane's Curse, 1941. In June 1941, Soviet anthropologists led by Mikhail Gerasimov traveled to Uzbekistan to open the tomb of the brutal 14th-century warlord Tamerlane. The locals were terrified. They pleaded with the scientists, pointing to an inscription on the tomb that read, "Who opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Gerasimov, a man of science, laughed it off and popped the lid on June 20th. Exactly 2 days later, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in human history, slamming into the Soviet Union. The timing was so chillingly perfect that even the atheist Joseph Stalin eventually panicked. In late 1942, as the Nazis were closing in, Stalin ordered Tamerlane's remains to be reburied with full Islamic honors. Just days after the tomb was resealed, the Soviets won the Battle of Stalingrad, turning the tide of the entire war. Whether you believe in ghosts or glitches, the math on this one is enough to make any scientist uncomfortable. Number 6. Major Walter Sommerfeld, the man Zeus hated. If you ever feel like the universe is out to get you, just remember Major Walter Sommerfeld. During World War I, Sommerfeld was riding his horse in Belgium when a bolt of lightning struck him, knocking him off his mount and paralyzing him from the waist down. He survived, retired, and moved to Canada to live a quiet, safe life. 6 years later, while he was fishing in a local river, lightning struck the tree he was sitting under, paralyzing the entire right side of his body. He recovered again, only to be walking in a park 2 years later when lightning struck him a third time, paralyzing him completely. He eventually passed away, likely relieved that he was finally beyond the reach of the clouds. He was wrong. 4 years after his funeral, a massive storm rolled in, and a bolt of lightning struck his gravestone, shattering it to pieces. That isn't bad luck. That is a targeted delete command from the sky. Number 7. The Deus Ex 9/11 texture glitch. The legendary cyberpunk game Deus Ex, released in the year 2000, is famous for its conspiracy-heavy plot, but its most unsettling feature was an accident. Due to severe memory limitations on the gaming computers of the time, the developers couldn't render the entire New York City skyline. To save RAM, they simply deleted the Twin Towers from the background. To explain why the towers were missing in the game's world, they added a throwaway line of dialogue in a data log, stating that they had been destroyed by a terrorist attack. The game was released just 1 year before the actual 9/11 attacks happened. It wasn't a political statement or a warning, it was a technical shortcut to save texture memory that accidentally predicted the defining tragedy of the modern era. When the game world's memory saving matches reality's future, you have to wonder who's actually rendering our skyline. Number 8. The Lincoln Booth Paradox. We all know the story of John Wilkes Booth assassinating Abraham Lincoln, but history conveniently forgot the incredible plot twist involving their families just months earlier.
Robert Todd Lincoln, the president's eldest son, was waiting on a crowded train platform in New Jersey. The crowd surged and Robert slipped, falling into the gap between the platform and a moving train. He was facing certain, gruesome death. Suddenly, a hand reached out and pulled him to safety by his collar. Robert turned to thank his hero and recognized him immediately. It was Edwin Booth, the most famous actor in America and the brother of John Booth. It is a staggering irony. One brother saved a Lincoln's life on a train platform, while the other took a Lincoln's life in a theater. It's as if the karma balance in the simulation tried to correct itself but overshot the target. Number 9. Wilmer McLean, the war's unwanted guest. Wilmer McLean is the most frustrated man in American history because the Civil War literally followed him around like a stray dog. In 1861, the first major land battle of the war, the First Battle of Bull Run, broke out specifically on his farm. A cannonball even dropped through his chimney and landed in his stew. McLean decided he wanted no part of the violence. He packed up his family and moved 120 miles south to a quiet, obscure town called Appomattox Courthouse, thinking he was finally safe. 4 years later, in 1865, General Robert E. Lee needed a place to surrender to Ulysses S. Grant. A messenger knocked on the door of the nearest nice house to host the meeting. It was Wilmer McLean's new home. The Civil War literally started in this man's backyard and ended in his front parlor. He moved to escape history, only for history to invite itself over for tea. Number 10. The 129-Year Loop, Napoleon and Hitler. If you want to see a copy-paste error in the grand script of history, look at the lives of Napoleon Bonaparte and Adolf Hitler. They are separated by exactly 129 years in almost every major milestone. Napoleon came to power in 1804. Hitler came to power in 1933, 129 years later. Napoleon invaded Vienna in 1809. Hitler invaded Vienna in 1938, 129 years later. Napoleon launched his disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. Hitler launched his disastrous invasion of Russia in 1941, 129 years later. Napoleon was finally defeated in 1815. Hitler was defeated in 1944/45, roughly 129 years later. It's as if the simulation was running a great dictator scenario and simply forgot to change the variables, proving that history doesn't just repeat itself, it runs on a strict mathematical loop. We just proved that our ancestors were living in a glitchy mess, and frankly, so are we. But I guarantee we missed something. There's always that one famous mind-bending historical coincidence that everyone screams about in the forums, and I deliberately left it out just to see if you'd notice. Which of these terrifying truths blew your mind the most? Was it the lightning-proof gravestone or the 129-year cycle? I want you to expose the simulation in the comments. Do you have a personal glitch story or a historical fact that beats these? Call me out right now. Also, hit subscribe unless you want your next lottery ticket to be a blank piece of paper. Don't risk the RNG.